Thank you so much. Welcome, everybody. I am going to go over the 5 trends that I've seen in AI in 2024. So, before I begin here, I want to at least tell you a little bit about me and who I am. I'm Tim. I'm been at Techolution now for about 5 or 6 years, maybe even a little longer than that. And I've been a developer since late 90s, so maybe not look that old, maybe I do, I don't know. But I've been doing this a long time, and I'm now the CTO here at Techolution, and hopefully I won't disappoint this big audience here with some cool demos. So before I get to the cool demos, I want to go back and just tell you where we came from, what we're looking at here, right? So back in the 50s, Alan Turing came back with a thought-provoking research titled, Can Machines Think? Sure, everybody knows all about this and all the fun and the groundwork that's been laid out here. In '86, Geoffrey Hinton, the godfather of modern AI, laid the groundwork for all the neural network models and the breakthroughs that we see today. And Hinton's discovery was what, 40 years ago? We've had the internet for around 30 now. And modern cloud computing, AWS, was almost 20 years ago. That's a lot of time that's gone by. And now, in 2023, why is AI suddenly just exploding? To answer that, we need to go back to college, specifically Economics 101, supply and demand. We have a massive labor shortage in this country, and really around the world, and it's only going to get worse. Did you know that every year, 500,000 more baby boomers are retiring than Gen Zs are entering the workforce? With a birth rate at 1.6 in the US, oops, sorry, one behind, and 1.3 in Asia and in Europe, it's not gonna get better anytime soon. If you add in the high persistent inflation of 6.5, which is well above the normal acceptable 2%, these problems are really driving the insane demand for AI. Enterprises have been trying to leverage this and get ahead of it to combat this labor shortage, but they can't scale in the real world. Something happened in November of 2022, which rekindled the idea and belief in AI. Does anybody know what that is? Well, I'll tell you, ChatGPT. And it's not about ChatGPT, but it did rekindle in the belief in the promise that AI would bring. There have been a lot of amazing breakthroughs and solutions in the last 5 to 7 years. Some of these up here that you see in this word cloud. Things like deep learning and neural networks and all supervised learning, all this stuff. All these words and achievements you see up here have been some really amazing breakthroughs. Yet, AI is still not mature enough to solve all the business problems that are out there today. So why? Why is that? Well, I'm not going to go into that too much. If you want to see a little bit more on that, I'm not going to steal my CEO's thunder. I think he'd be a little upset with me, but he's doing a keynote tomorrow. So I'm going to go more on the technical side and do some demos. But the trillion-dollar question is, what can AI solve today? Well, I'm not just going to give you the trillion-dollar idea, at least not for free. I'm hoping that I can at least spark some ideas for you guys to help with your either million or even billion-dollar idea. So with that, let's go with the top 5 trends in 2024 for AI. So I will preface, I did have a lot of these demos, live demos that I'm going to do. I'm going to do one. The other ones I do have pre-recorded. The internet's been a little spotty. I've been in this a long time. I have them all pre-recorded. So if you want to see these in action, our booth is literally right there. Come by and check it out. So the first one on the list is Enterprise GPT. With Enterprise GPT, we give the power of getting instant but intelligent answers 24/7 across all departments in your organization. Departments like HR or operations or finance, right? So let's take finance, for example. You are a CFO, you're at home Friday watching your CNBC, and the cost of gas just skyrockets. You want to know how the rising cost of gas is going to impact your bottom line. And I'm sure all of your CEOs are asking questions like this. And the data science people and the business people probably have the data, somewhere it exists. But really, data is just noise. We need intelligence that can sift through the noise and get to the answers so we can make rapid but good decisions. So I'm going to show you this in action. I don't think my CFO would like if I put my financial data up here. So I'm going to use something a little different. I'm going to go over a little bit different use case of, whoops, there we go, starting. Sorry, I'm trying to get the video to play. Video playing? I can't tell from here. There we go. All right, so I'm going to show you this in action. Instead of financial data, I'm going to show you IFUs, or information for use documents. These are PDFs that are publicly available by manufacturers of medical degrade products. Think of like instruction manuals, but for like medical products, right? Like these are long, complicated, sometimes very clean, sometimes have like pictures. And the idea here is we want to be able to ingest these into a system so that we can essentially build an LLM on top of them to be able to go out and look through them. Healthcare professionals don't have the time to even know where these documents are, to get to the questions that they need to know right away. So they need a simple interface so that they can ask the questions they need to make the decisions right away for it. So what I got going on right here is I have a bunch of these IFUs. These are actually PDF documents, right? So very similar. This could really be anything though. It could be databases, could be data warehouses, could be Excel, Sheets data. I've done all different kinds of projects with all different data sources that exist out there. And we're going to then create an agent here, which is going to be able to ingest those different documents. So now the cool thing about this is that we're essentially establishing a context. So I think I showed 3 documents there. So we're going to upload each one of these documents into the system. It's going to parse all that information out, and this is going to be the base for the context. The AI only knows about this particular context that's going on, and we can only ask questions specifically about this context. We can even set up guardrails, so if it doesn't know the answer to the question, it can actually go out and give you an answer, and I have a good example of that for my next demo, to showcase what comes after that. So you don't have that hallucination problem, you don't have all those different issues that are going on in the back end. The other thing that's really neat about this is we can set essentially the context about who we are as the person or the bot, if you will, who is actually responding to the questions. We can say that, okay, we understand a little bit about this. You are a person who understands these documents and are able to go through and showcase it. One of the other reasons that I did want to show this in video form, because the training, if you can see how fast time is going, is actually takes a good amount of time to train. It takes a good 10 to 20 minutes to be able to go in and take these documents and be able to ingest them as part of the LLM. So now we're able to go in and actually search, ask questions about the different products, and you can see that we get a perfect context in response to the information that we provided. This whole solution can be rolled out relatively quickly. We've done production deployments in as quick as 8 weeks and have a pretty good automation process in the back end that can actually consume and process this data for different aspects. So imagine different areas. So if I did want to do financial documents, and I'm sure the skeptics out there are wondering, is my data secure? Is this going to be used to go back to train the public model? And the answer is, it always depends, right? But in this particular case, we can set it up so the model is running in your own tenant and deployed into your own environment. It can even run in an on-prem environment directly with just GPUs and CPUs in the backend. So number 4 on my list, I call this the Gen AI killer, the chatbot killer, which is Gen AI for customer engagement. So I'm sure everybody has chatbots or are looking to deploy chatbots into your organizations, but who likes them? Nobody, right? They're complicated to set up. They are extremely hard to set up for the flows. You can't really predict what they're going to do at any given time. So our solution for this is essentially Gen AI. So imagine that you can take your best CSRs that exist out there. You can pair them with an RALF strategy, basically human in the loop training. And within 3 months, you can have an autonomous grade customer service agent that can come in and answer your customers' questions directly. We start by building it from the ground up and just capturing the questions and the response from the actual agents. Then, as a second rollout phase, we can actually implement a way so that it becomes more of an assistant. That way, the CSRs can actually communicate directly with an assistant, get the answers that they care about, and even correct them to make sure that they're accurate. That way, we making sure everything is going through correctly. The final phase was actually rolling this out into the wild and putting it directly in front of your customers. Then you're only acting as essentially a moderator. You're looking for scores that are relatively low in confidence score and can go in and then correct those scores automatically. This really frees up your agents and can now just worry about the problem answers and build it up over time, gradually and slowly and more accurately. Here's a recent project that we did for GNC. They wanted to replace their current chatbots with a customer engagement AI, which they called Ryan. We deployed Ryan onto their site in less than 6 weeks. We have a bunch of questions here. A very similar process to how we ingested the IFUs. We took all their product data about the different aspects of all the solutions they have out there, set up guardrails to make sure that the responses aren't going off the rails, and I'm pretty sure there's an example in this video. And we also, which is really super cool, integrated in images and product links into the actual response of the LLM. So you can now add in, tracking data for the different aspects of the solution. You could also do discount codes and things like that, anything that's related to retail and e-commerce solutions. The guardrails are really cool too. So if you ask a question, for instance, how do I lose weight, right? This bot obviously isn't a doctor here, so we want to make sure that it's not going to recommend something that is just completely off the rails. And we even integrated it and connected it with their customer service directly to answer those hard questions, to make sure that they're not getting a response out there. I don't think I got to that part yet. One of the really cool things too that you may have saw as you guys were walking in when I was testing the audio here, but imagine you could take this solution as well and deploy it into a brick and mortar store, maybe in the form of a kiosk. Could be really anything. Could even be on the website directly, and have the ability to put a human face behind these responses and go out and actually interpret those and respond. That way, if you're deaf or speak different languages, blind and speak different languages, you can actually have a bot out there to do that for you. So I thought I'd give you a cool example of that. So me, in case you didn't recognize me.
Of course, we have a variety of zinc products to choose from. One of our popular products is liquid ionic zinc. This supplement is a rich, concentrated liquid dietary supplement that provides 50 milligrams of zinc sulfate per serving in an ionic form. It is certified vegan, gluten-free. This supplement is great for supporting immunity, digestion, growth, and development.
So hopefully you get a spokesperson, not me, or at least more attractive than me to do this, but you can certainly get that. We can even do it in Spanish.
Por supuesto, tenemos una
Trust me, I do
variedad
not
de
speak Spanish.
productos de zinc para elegir. Uno de nuestros productos populares es el zinc iónico líquido. Este suplemento es un suplemento dietético líquido rico.
Or even harder languages, like something like Hindi, which I definitely do not speak.
बिल्कुल, हमारे पास चुनने के लिए विभिन्न प्रकार के जस्ता उत्पाद हैं. हमारे लोकप्रिय उत्पादों में से एक लिक्विड आयनिक जिंक है. यह पूरक एक समृद्ध केंद्रित तरल आहार पूरक है जो एक आयनिक रूप में प्रति सेवा रत 50 मिलीग्राम
if we wanted to implement, let's call it an Easter egg, we could even make it sing.
I found the love for me.
And believe me, I cannot sing that well. So
follow my
I will spare you the good version here and we'll move on. But some cool features. All right, let's move to number 3. Technical debt is crippling lots of organizations out there and really stifling innovation. Most organizations have some form of technical debt, and the older the organization, usually the worse it is, right? It cripples innovation, product development consumes a lot of time and money, and usually is not even a priority for the business. Let's take a look at one language in particular, COBOL, right? Probably send shivers down your spines, especially in the financial services industry. Devs aren't getting any younger here, yet we still even today see a huge increase in the number of lines of COBOL code every year. This is a huge problem. 70% of the world's financial transactions go through this legacy language. The average COBOL developer is a baby boomer, most likely retiring soon. Who is going to run these new applications or these old applications? Definitely not your Gen Z guy who pretty much only speaks Python at this point. And does anybody else see a big problem here? Well, fortunately, AI might give us a way to get out of this. Let's see this in a demo. We're going to convert a less supported language, C Basic. I don't know if anybody knows what that is, but we couldn't even find a compiler on the internet to compile the C Basic code out there. And it's a nice extreme case in the fact that it's hard to find all that information about it. And we're going to convert this code into actually Python. So the cool thing about this is we can actually convert it and actually build and run test cases. Now you can see that a test case failed in this particular one, and that's because we got a divide by zero error. We're going to interact with the actual LLM to be able to go in and say, hey, when you see that, return an actual error message out now, so that we're not actually throwing a system error. It's actually more of a runtime error or an app error. When we rerun that, assuming I'm keeping pace with how the video is playing, it will then come back and show you the actually application error that's now running. Now, for just the sense of this demo, what I've instructed them to do now is interact back from a business perspective and say, hey, when we get a divide by zero error, actually just return zero. So it actually returns and passes the test case. By interacting it as a normal person or a business user without actually doing any coding, we can actually make those code changes on the fly. And then after I type the command in here and rerun the test case, you can actually see that now the test is passing. Hopefully. Well, it's a video, so it should work. But pretty cool stuff. So if you're wondering though, why did you do this? Why don't you use ChatGPT? That, they do code conversion. And what is the value of this, right? Well, in all honesty, it's not just about converting the code. We also have to keep in mind your organization's languages that exist out there and are able to be supported. Your organization's standards, right, in coding languages and being able to go adhere to that. We want to make sure that we can build and execute unit tests and actually run them, and then even implement into your own CI/CD environment, right? What good is converting the code if it's just another artifact out there and it doesn't actually serve anything at the end of the day? So some pretty cool stuff. All right, now we get into the fun piece. We're going to get into our robot here, actually technically a cobot. Number 2 on my list is physical labor AI with computer vision. I said earlier, AI is not yet ready to solve all the labor problems that exist right now. Well, I did lie a little. It can solve very specific problems. And typically, the more specific the problem, the more that the AI is equipped to solve it. So with that, we're going to demo our cobot here. So what is going on here is we have a robotic arm that we did not build, just in case you're curious. And it will be at our booth later in case you're interested in actually seeing it and working with it directly. Funny story is when you actually buy this thing, it doesn't even come with a hand. You have to actually design and build your own hand. These are things that we have fabricated ourselves to solve this specific use case. And we have integrated this with a camera as well. So there's a camera sitting on the front of that can inventory what's going on in the fridge. So you can ask it through the LLM interface what's in the fridge, and it'll actually come back, scan it, and actually tell you. It's pretty smart too. You can ask it all kinds of things, like give me a water tea drink. And if you don't know what that is, it's Canada Dry. And it will be able to find that from the fridge and pull it out for you. If it doesn't have a particular soda, so let's say, and I'm not sure what he's asking for, Diet Coke. He's asking for a Diet Coke. So he is going through and getting a Diet Coke. If they wanted a Pepsi, which I do not think is in there, it would most likely recommend a Diet Coke for you. It is tuned down pretty slow too, on purpose. You do not want this thing hitting you. Although this is a cobot and not a robot and is designed to work in the proximity of humans. It can be spun up pretty quickly though, almost double or triple that speed. Now you may be asking, what is the practical application of this? I can just walk over the fridge and pull it out. While that is extremely true, this is more built for the demo purposes so that we could showcase the ability to integrate robotics, computer vision, and LLMs into a single use case that can solve a lot of problems. What is not shown on the stage here, which will be over at our booth, is more the practical application of this. We have a solution where we can actually pick up medical grade screws from a table, and that's that green box that you're seeing in front of it, if you can actually see that. It will go in, pick up each individual screw, take that, present it into a camera, which sits next to it, and it can do quality control of a screw down to 1/100 of a millimeter. So pretty impressive that it's able to actually pick it up and show it to a camera to do quality control. We've even picked up washers, think of the 1 millimeter washers off the ground from a table. I mean, I can't even do that with my fingers. So it does some pretty amazing things. What did you ask for? Ginger ale. He asked for a ginger ale. So if anybody's thirsty and wants to come by and get a drink, please come by our booth. All right, we're going to move on to the number one use case that I've seen, and we do have a demo again at the booth. We actually have two here for this, and that is autonomous inventory AI. I actually have our Wawa warmer over there, and if you guys have seen some of it, it's in over there to be able to do this. It will actually detect the sandwiches that are in there at any given time, be able to tell you at any given moment what the inventory is of going on in the warmer. Based on tracking sandwiches either coming in or going out from the warmer, it can estimate how many sandwiches to make at any given time, allowing the cooks at Wawa to go through and actually recommend the number of sandwiches to make. This was a very successful deployment, and I would love for you to hear it from our customers directly.
And now I would say over the last 8 weeks, it's really been working effectively. And looking at our spoilage percentage, and it's been cut in half, and I'm shocked by how effective it's actually been. So, I was turned from a doubter into a believer right now. So,
Well, hopefully now I've given you some great insights into the top 5 cases that I've seen deployed with our customer base. And hopefully you have some ideas to build your next million or billionaire ideas. So where do we go next? For that reason, we've crafted an AI COE to help you find the right solution for your business. Not everything can be built with AI, nor really should it be. And whether you succeed or fail is really going to be dictated by what you select. If you want to learn more about this, come see our keynote tomorrow. I think it'll be really insightful, and there'll go a lot more information about this. And if you really want to manage the risk of AI, specifically on what not to build, check out one of the big 4 audit firms, as they're really good at telling you what not to build and what the risk is of doing so. Last thing that I thought I'd leave with here is, not everything I talked about is really related to all industries. So I thought I would leave you with the top AI solutions in a few select industries that I've worked with a lot. As you can see here, over the next 3 years, we're going to see an initial surge in AI, with manufacturing ramping up a little slower. Since we're in New York City here, the capital of finance, I figured I'd go a little deeper into that area first. So in finance, I got a bunch of did you knows here. I always thought these were really impactful. But in finance, the cost per customer conversation with a human costs $8 versus a 10 cents with a conversational Gen AI solution. With an 80x savings in customer service an increasing cost and lack of talent pools, specifically in legacy language support, it's probably no surprise that technical debt mitigation and customer engagement AI are really the two areas that are going to see the biggest drivers in AI in the future. Probably fraud detection is up there on the list too. I mean, there's a lot of fraud, especially in financial services, which I think needs to be addressed right away. Once you've made all your money in finance, probably getting a little older now that you've been through for a while, gonna need a little healthcare love. So let's talk about healthcare. In healthcare, a quarter of all of the healthcare professionals' time is spent on inventory management tasks. That's unbelievable. I personally would love to see a world where healthcare professionals can stick to what they're paid to do, and that's really patient care, not having to worry about inventory management. I think this presents a huge opportunity for AI to fill. And really, I'm really most excited about the medical images insights. We're doing a couple cool projects with x-rays and being able to read x-rays, but using computers to leverage the read and the wet reads of x-rays to do that first round pass is going to be a huge step forward. All right, on to manufacturing. Did you know 82% of manufacturing companies are experiencing labor shortage and around 800,000 jobs that are currently open? That's unbelievable. Dynamic, high precision quality control for small batch sizes is really going to be the main area here to implement AI. Things like the screw detection, right? The problem now with manufacturing is there are long batch sizes and they're very specific to one specific product line. Not being able to, or being able to use the same component to do multiple SKUs in multiple products without having to change any hardware and doing much smaller runs is really where I think the market's going to want to go. I've also started to see a lot of implementations for predictive maintenance on machines and different devices, but it's really a bigger uplift with all the legacy tech out there. And I think that's one of the reasons why we see a later adoption specifically in that area. All right, retail. Did you know 79% of US retailers either face an over or an underbuying issue? If a retailer underbuys, it equates to 1.4 billion in lost revenue every single week. That's GDP. Retail is probably the most bullish when it comes to opportunities, specifically in AI. I mean, we've proved through our Wawa prediction system that we can cut spoilage by up to 70% per store, while still improving their sales. By implementing solutions like we did for GNC, we have enabled their customers to essentially implement and work with their customer service like they would be a normal person in a brick and mortar store. And we're currently building the recommendation and the personalization engines. And I hope next time I see you, I'll have a lot more demos to show you there. So as an enterprise leader, your organizations will be changing completely in a short amount of time. Now, looking around the room here, I bet most of you were part of the internet revolution back in the 2000s. I know I was. And whether you realize it or not, we're in an AI revolution right now, and even an AI race, if I will. And me personally, I am the most excited to see how AI can be implemented to fill the labor gaps of the current problem we have today and replace a lot of those boring, repetitive jobs that honestly, nobody really wants to do anyway. And they most likely pay minimum wage and they're tough to fill. Now that I've shown you some cool ideas on how to implement AI to help your business become more profitable, your customers hopefully happier, and probably most importantly, your own personal lives by hopefully making more money in the AI space and getting promoted. So thank you so much. I'm open for questions. I don't know. I don't see the time's not running, so I don't know how we are on time. But if anybody's got questions, I'll try. He's coming with the mic. Hey, Matt.
Can you hear me? Okay. So when it comes to the use case for converting legacy code to maybe a modern language, right? How do you deal with IP? Because a lot of companies with the legacy code, there might be IP associated with it, right? How do you deal with that?
So I think you heard the question, but just to summarize the question is, when converting legacy code, how do I handle IP, right? So with all these solutions, they are deployed into your own private cloud tenant, which is completely decoupled from everything else. We can, depending on what kind of environment you're looking at, whether it be federal or FedRAMP moderated, you can even go that level, or into public cloud, or even on-prem environment. They're all basically using, at the end of the day, GPUs and CPUs to do a lot of the model training. So it's completely decoupled and running your own space. It's not connecting back to any of the publicly available APIs. Now, if you needed to or wanted to for whatever reason, we certainly can, but we pretty much advise not to do that, especially when it comes to IP, because you don't want data breaches and other things leaking out, right? Answer your question? Okay, cool. There we go.
Thank you. Great presentation. For that demo where you upload the documents and then it finds information, do you use RAG, retrieval augmented generation? Tell me more about the stuff that you use to build that.
Sorry, I can't really hear you. Could you repeat it?
Can you hear me now?
Better.
Okay, for the demo that you had where you were uploading documents, do you use RAG, retrieval augmented generation? Tell me more about the stuff that you use to build that.
I'll answer with not yet.
Okay.
Maybe one day. I would love to. I was over their booth earlier, and I saw some really cool things that could help speed up some of the performance and solutioning around that.
Yeah.
But from the back end perspective, it's a lot of solutions that we wrote on what we call RELF, which is real reinforcement learning with expert feedback, being able to go in and correct the answers that come in. So think of it as a question comes in, it comes into our tooling on the back end of that. The expert who is able to go in and correct it, in this particular case, probably a C Basic engineer who can actually read it, can look at how well it did on the back end of that and actually correct it on the fly, so that it then goes back into the AI process to be converted and processed in the future. For some of the other tech, it uses a lot of base technology out there with CPUs, and depending on the cloud environment we deploy it to, we essentially have a BYO LLM environment where I can bring any model framework to the cloud that we need to in order to implement the solution. So we use mostly open source tooling to do a lot of that. Hopefully that answers a lot of your question. If I missed anything, let me know. Anybody else?
So I guess an extension of his RAG comment, multimodal. What are your thoughts on what the future holds for multimodal applications? Kind of building off of the 5 examples you gave. Are you able to speak on multimodal?
So I think I heard, what is on multimodal?
Yeah, give me your thoughts on multimodal extensions in the next 2 years based on some of these use cases you explained. What are your thoughts on multimodal for the future? As supplementing RAG and supplementing your RHLF applications, what are your thoughts on multimodal for the future?
I don't know if I know the answer to that question. Johnny, do you know how to answer that?
Maybe. So, tell me a little bit more about multimodal, just different data sources, different types of images, language.
Since I can't hear that conversation, maybe why don't we take that offline? Just, I'll catch up with you. Anybody else have a question? Last chance? Going once? No? Cool. Well, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.